Alrighty, I am joined on today's podcast by Cody, and Cody is the director of sales at ShipStation. So super excited to have Cody on on the podcast today. And what I'm going to do is turn the mic over to Cody to do a quick introduction, and then I have prepared a huge range of questions to grill Cody to extract best practices, tips, and tricks as it relates to all things shipping. So with that said, Cody, first, thanks for taking the time to join us. And if you would, maybe set the stage and just give us your Reader's Digest.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having us this morning. So as you mentioned, I'm the director of sales here at ShipStation. That means that my team gets to help thousands of e-commerce merchants every day. I kind of nerd out on this stuff. I probably spend more time thinking about e-commerce shipping than most people in the world. So hopefully we can share some helpful tips and tricks. My team really focuses on helping e-commerce businesses improve by streamlining and hopefully automating a lot of their shipping processes so they can spend that time focused on other parts of the business.
Awesome. All right, Cody. Well, in preparation for today's podcast, I went to the the InkSoft Facebook user group and mentioned that we would be doing a podcast together. So I solicited questions, give us your burning questions as it relates to all things shipping. And so before we get into those questions from our audience, I first wanted to set the stage and make sure everybody has a full awareness of what ShipStation is and how you guys came to be. So if you don't mind, can you maybe level set here and just kind of give us the background on ShipStation as an organization and sort of the core service that you folks offer?
Yeah, sure. Great place to start. So ShipStation is the leading cloud-based software for e-commerce merchants to create labels, quickly get their orders out the door. It started about 10 years ago when our founders built out what at the time was the most popular eBay application for power sellers. It's called Octane. It became really popular for a lot of the people that were moving high volume on eBay. They started to see requests for Amazon and Shopify and pretty much every other channel you could think of. So they built ShipStation, which at this point connects with pretty much anywhere that you would want to sell online and however you would want to ship things out. So the idea is that you plug all of your selling channels into ShipStation. Same concept, you can plug all of your carriers so you have them in one place so you're not jumping back and forth between all these different carriers and all these different websites. You log in, you see all of your orders in one place, you have all your carrier options there in one place. So instead of having to go order by order or copy and paste addresses, you can log in, have one hub, see everything that needs to go out the door, hit select all, click print, everything else is taken care of.
Awesome. Well, we should probably make very clear right now that ShipStation is our latest integration inside of the InkSoft platform. And the immediate response we got was awesome. So it's already providing a tremendous amount of value to InkSoft customers. So we're really excited about sharing some more insights and giving our listeners a real understanding of why they should be taking advantage of the technology. So, all right, well, let's get underway with the very first question that was posed back to my inquiry about, hey, what do you guys want to know about shipping? And of course, as you could presume, the very first question was, how do I save time when it comes to shipping? That's time is a big sort of sink in traditional shipping methods. So if you would illuminate, how ShipStation is helping merchants save time when it comes to things related to shipping.
Yeah, sure. Let's call it what it is. I get excited about this stuff, but pretty much nobody else in the world does, right? You start your e-commerce business. It's not because you're excited about shipping. It's not because you wanted to spend time trying to get orders out the door. You're excited about that next product that you're coming out with or getting the word out about your business or driving that next sale. So what we're here to do is hopefully automate anything that anybody does manually or repetitively throughout the day. So copying and pasting addresses, doing orders one at a time, having to jump back and forth between UPS and FedEx and USPS. We're here to eliminate all of that. So I would say start there. Think about your day and think of the things that you find yourself doing over and over, whether that's anything from handwriting out an address to having to copy an address from where you're selling to take it over to your carrier website. Really, it's 2019. All of that should be automated, and that's what we do. So, regardless of volume, I would start there. Think about the parts of your day that if you could, you would eliminate, because chances are, we probably can. So that's where we typically start the conversation with merchants. Low hanging fruit there is if you do have to jump back and forth between, let's say, like UPS World Ship and FedEx Ship Manager to compare rates and things like that, or if you're doing it one at a time, we like to educate it that at the end of the day, you should really just be able to log in, hit select all, and click a button and have all of this taken care of. So I would say start there, and then hopefully, eliminate those redundant solutions where you can just have one go-to place to get your orders out the door every day, whether that's ShipStation or something else. That would definitely be the place that I would start.
Awesome. All right. Well, as you might assume, the follow up question to that was, well, how do I save money as it relates to things, like shipping? So, what insights can you share in terms of cost savings?
Yeah, sure. So what most of the merchants that we're working with, what I typically see them starting out and maybe again kind of wasting time and money on this front is that they're having to go to different solutions to make this comparison, right? So you get an order, maybe you're not especially well versed in shipping, or maybe you just added a new provider, you're not exactly sure what they're going to be charging. So you're jumping back and forth between these different solutions. Again, right there, you're wasting time, which obviously time for a business owner is money. But then maybe you're not getting an apples to apples comparison. Maybe one carrier, quotes everything up front, but then the next provider, doesn't include their surcharges on the quote, things like that. So, I would recommend having all of those providers aggregated into one place. That's what our rate calculator does. You log in for any given order. You can see all of your available options. They'll be listed out by price, delivery time, all of that information so that you can start to make informed decisions. So having one dashboard where you can compare all of that, really crucial for someone who maybe, isn't an expert in shipping rates. And then kind of the next step of that is basically mistake proofing it, right? So once you have that information at your disposal, you can start to make really educated decisions, and you can take the guesswork and the manual evaluation out of the process. What we find is that a lot of merchants who don't have a system like ours in place, maybe they have their one guy in the warehouse that has all of this tribal knowledge about shipping, but if he or she is out sick that day, or maybe they have to hire on, new staff for the holidays, some of that may fall through the cracks, and it might not seem like much, but if you start to ship the wrong service, one order out of 10, and maybe that's a $4 difference on an order that could have gone USPS priority, but it was accidentally shipped a ground service because that person didn't know any better. Over a busy, holiday season, especially, that can start to add up. So have one place where you can get an apples to apples comparison without spending a lot of time, and then, start to use the automation that's at your disposal to make sure the right thing happens every time once you have that determination in place.
Awesome. Well, this is sort of a follow up question as it relates to saving money on shipping, but what advice can you dispense to entrepreneurs when it comes to, do I see shipping as sort of a profit centered? Am I marking up the rates that I get from my vendors, or do I subsidize shipping, or even like some major e-tailers, do I make shipping free as an inducement to purchase and remove friction? I mean, what's kind of the mindset that entrepreneurs should consider when making these decisions about price and cost?
Yeah, great question. We have this conversation really frequently. So obviously, perfect world for the consumer is going to be, free shipping across the board, but we understand that's not always feasible. The main thing that we advise our merchants on is, regardless, almost think of this as a psychological experiment, and try and have everything up front, regardless of what that is. We know every business is different, so that's a business decision you might have to make for yourself, whether you can offer free shipping or flat rate shipping. But we find that a lot of our merchants who are coming in who maybe haven't done this before are really overly fixated on making sure that the exact price that they pay the carrier is what the customer pays them. And
Right.
we actually find that that's not really nearly as important. What we find is that, especially in terms of cart conversion, which, obviously crucial for growing e-commerce business, is going to be largely dependent on how surprised the customer feels, right? Think about the last time you were shopping online. I know I'm this way to a T. I may have $100, $200 worth of stuff in my cart. I may have been, online shopping for half an hour. I'm ready to make this purchase, and then I get to checkout, and for whatever reason, I get hit with a surprise $7.24 shipping charge.
Right.
Even though grand scheme of that order, that's not that significant. It's the psychological effect that, I thought I was out the door at this price, and then I feel tricked, forget it. What we find is much more successful is, using the tools at your disposal, like that rate calculator we mentioned, starting to get an idea of, hey, on average, this is what shipping is going to cost me. I understand that maybe that's going to be a little different. Some orders I may make money, some orders I may, eat a little bit of the cost, but that's okay. I'm going to take that information and have a flat, transparent upfront shipping cost. I'm going to use that as a means to promote my business. So whether that's, $4, $5, $6, whatever that number is for your business that makes sense, having that upfront flat rate to where the end customer doesn't feel surprised is one of the biggest differentiators. And then, of course, we do see merchants that are successful by offering free shipping. A lot of those will get creative, obviously using it as a marketing tool to drive upsells, free shipping above, X amount of dollars, or even maybe baking some of that cost into the actual item cost to help promote it. So, I'd be hesitant to make a blanket statement around, what to do or what to charge, but think of it in terms of cart conversion completely, as opposed to thinking about, making sure, I don't pay the carrier, a couple extra cents.
Got it. Yeah, that's perfect insights. All right. So we've been busy on the InkSoft Facebook group talking about things like, branded sort of shipping delivery experience. There's this whole trend on YouTube of unboxing videos. And of course, some of the most successful brands teach us a lot about packaging and sort of that initial experience with the product. So let's talk about what might be inconceivable. Are there marketing and branding opportunities through shipping?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. This is one we get really excited about. So, a mistake that we see maybe growing merchants or newer merchants make is that they do all this work into getting the word out about their product. They have this beautiful site. They're doing all these great promotions. They put a ton of work into their marketing. They get the sale, and then they just think of it as really a utility from that point forward, right? If you've gone that far, you've got that engaged customer, really the part of the process where you're guaranteed the most of their attention is this tail end of the process, right? I mean, think about the last time you bought something online. If you're anything like me, you got that tracking email, you clicked it right away, and then you clicked it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before your order actually got to your doorstep. So that means that's a huge piece of the process that can be used to drive engagement at a really, really low cost, right? Think about if you were sending a marketing email out or a sales promotion, and you knew that you were going to get 3 clicks per customer on that. You do everything you could to leverage that, right? So we actually ran the data. And it turns out that everybody's that way. On average, end customers are clicking on your tracking links more than once before they get their orders, and that's across all orders. So sometimes you may see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 clicks, right? It means it's a huge opportunity to drive your next sale, as you mentioned, to drive social media attention and things like that. So what we actually did with that information is built what we call branded tracking. Really what it means is just driving that traffic on that part of the process back to you, right? So you can customize that email that goes out, as opposed to it just being a plain text, really utilitarian email that says, hey, your order is shipped. You can have it branded. It can be consistent with your experience that they've seen on the website. It can really get them excited about the brand and turn those into repeat customers, as opposed to just being, a kind of a foregone conclusion. I also see merchants get really creative and using this kind of in conjunction with their automation. Common example there is that a lot of my clients will set up high value order automation, right? So orders over $500, I actually want to switch that communication to this specific template that provides them a story about the product they bought, gives them instructions, and then maybe provides a coupon code for a discount off of their next order to thank them for their loyalty, things along those lines. And then part of the process that we really educate on, that I would say we probably don't get as many questions coming in about, because this is something that people may not think of, is actual tracking link itself, right? So when you get that email, hey, your order is shipped, as I mentioned, everybody's clicking that tracking link. But historically, and what a lot of merchants have set up, is that when that link is clicked, it just takes them over to UPS.com, FedEx.com, USPS.com, which is fine. It gives the information. It kind of shows where the shipment is along the way. But you fought hard for that traffic. You fought hard for that sale. You might as well drive that piece of the puzzle back to you, right? So instead of saying, okay, thanks, here's UPS.com, we actually developed a way to where when the end customer clicks that link, it's going to take them to a landing page that has your logo, your branding, shows a map of the country that you're shipping in, and shows where their shipment is along the way, and then also links to your social media, your website, provides a space for you to give some custom messaging, and all of that's at no extra charge. So regardless of whether you're using ShipStation or not, I really advise merchants to think about that part of the process, right? It can be a huge point of engagement, and start to get creative with that stuff, because that's when for a fact that the people are going to have eyeballs on what you're doing.
That's absolutely brilliant. It's really interesting that ShipStation should commission a study a consumer impatience study to see how many times the average consumer tracks on tracking links. Interesting data.
If it's anything like me, that'd be a very, very high number.
That's hilarious. Well, following, again, my Facebook post, there was a bunch of generalized shipping questions. So I'm going to kind of hit you with some of these specific questions to see what kind of insights you can offer up. How should I think about making decisions in terms of what shipping methods and options to offer? Meaning, are there best practices for doing things like offering second day and ground, like a myriad? Is there a magic number and how many vendors and services to offer? Do you have any sort of advice you could dispense there?
Yeah, so there definitely is a magic number, and the answer is more than one. So that's what I typically see merchants come in, and if there's one most common mistake is that they've got all their eggs in one basket here. Maybe USPS is just really easy, and that's what they've always used, or maybe they signed up with a specific carrier, a long time ago, and that's just the account that they've always used. With tools like ours available, there's no reason not to shop around, right? And that's kind of the point of all of this, is that you can use different providers. So maybe that's for your lightweight orders. USPS always makes the most sense because it's far and away the most economic choice for you. But when your customer pays extra to get something there really quickly, FedEx or UPS or another carrier comes into play. Giving those extra options doesn't necessarily mean extra work at this point. So obviously a business decision, but what we typically see in place is that, free or flat rate shipping that we discussed, and then combining that with another option, to pay for express delivery. And then what you can do in turn is to automate off of that. So that field actually comes in as a piece of that order. So instead of you having to look and see, oh, this was an express order, for example, you could just say, hey, if customer selects this at checkout, let's go ahead and automatically assign this particular 2-day service from a carrier. So, cuts down on that processing time, which is a big part of how quickly you can get those orders out the door, which in turn is a big part of, how quick you can offer, options there. The one thing that I would say is, don't necessarily go overboard there. We oftentimes find that the end customers, they're relatively agnostic when it comes to the carrier choice. If they're anything like me, like I don't really care whether or not FedEx or UPS is bringing that order to my door. I just want to know when it's going to be here, and then I'm going to make that decision on if it's worth it for me to pay more to get it there even more quickly. So I would say, don't overdo it, because I have seen merchants that may go overboard and have, 10 very carrier and service specific options at checkout. And that actually in turn is bad for cart conversion. So I would say, keep it simple, but have more than one provider to open up your options. Maybe provide your customers 2 or 3 options at checkout. And then whatever you decide to offer, turn that into automation, so you're not having to spend extra time just because you gave your customers more choices.
Got it. Well, my next question, I think, ties cost, price, marketing, customer service, and shipping all into sort of one question. So let's talk about handling returns, because generally, in some instances, returning a product means generating a shipping label and getting the product shipped back to the merchant. Sometimes that's at a cost. Sometimes that's made available as a sort of a free service. Can you share some of the best practices that you're aware of as it relates to, handling returns and all the things that go into that?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. This kind of ties back to the thing that I mentioned about, some growing merchants being overly fixated on that, penny for penny, dollar for dollar cost. We definitely find that the growing businesses we're working with are largely really afraid of returns, right? It's scary. You've done all this work, you've put all of this time and effort and money into capturing this sale and then getting the order out the door. And then at the very end, it feels like the rug's pulled out from under you, and it can definitely just feel like a sunken cost, right? So we see a lot of merchants that are intentionally or maybe even unknowingly trying to make this a more difficult process, which is actually a little bit backwards. If you're taking a little bit more of a long-term approach, we ran the data again on this, and the merchants that we see providing what we would consider a strong returns process over a 1 and 2 year period see a significant uptick in repeat sales that they're driving from that customer. So even though to a growing business that really just feels like a sunk cost, and you really feel like you're losing out on this, actually, if you can take a little bit higher view approach on this, giving that customer a great experience and making it really easy is actually going to lead them to buying from you again, especially in industries like, footwear and apparel, things like that. This is going to be huge. And so, a couple things you can do here. One that I see is that a lot of businesses who are not as well versed in this area, it's a very manual process. And so, that doesn't feel like much if you're just taking a couple returns here and there. But think about it. You've got the hours of the day. When are you going to be staffed? Are you taking a customer service call every time somebody needs to generate a return? Are you spending a little extra time every time that somebody needs to go through this process? Well, at that point, you've done two things, right? You're spending extra overhead on your staffing for something that's not really driving a repeat sale. And then you're kind of giving a bad customer experience on the other end, right? Like I know if it's me, I'm preferably not picking up the phone to call into a customer service rep for really just about anything, but definitely not something that can be automated. So we actually developed a way for this. What we call a branded returns portal, but it's essentially a link that you can include anywhere. Could be linked as the returns policy on your website. It could be included with that tracking email itself. But instead of a customer having to call in to customer service, where you're spending extra time and wages, they can actually just hit this link, validate it with their order number and delivery zip code, and it'll take them to a next page where it has all the items in their order. They can give feedback. They can select reasons why they're returning this information, and then they can generate a prepaid return label right there on the spot. So much better customer experience, but then also gives the business owner some data out of that, right? So some of my clients may come back and say, hey, we found through this returns portal that this particular SKU was always coming back because it was the wrong size or it was defective. And so we took that information to our manufacturer and actually kind of improved things. So you can actually get something out of this part of the process. But the big picture is that, those customers that feel really good about that part of the process, those are going to be the ones that come back and buy from you again. If you just try and make it tough on them, they're still going to find a way to return that if you allow it, and then you're probably not going to get any more purchases from them in the end. So I understand that the free or the prepaid, whether or not you should offer it, that can be a business decision for sure. But best practice that we see, most of our most successful merchants are typically, viewing this as kind of a part of the marketing and re-engagement process, using it to drive sales down the road. And they typically are making this part of the process as easy as possible on the end consumer.
Awesome. Very good insights. Well, I suppose this question kind of relates back to some of the discussion we had on marketing, but are there opportunities to treat sort of the shipping experience or shipping in general as sort of a competitive differentiator? I mean, are you guys seeing anything with your successful merchants that they're doing that might be, sort of unique or untraditional?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that tail end of the process is huge, right? Like if I get a cool pair of shoes with a great unboxing experience at this point, I'm taking a picture of that. I'm Snapchatting it to my friend, things along those lines. So stuff that may not necessarily drive immediately visible traffic. You're getting that viral exposure. You're getting those referral sales off of this part of the process. So really being communicative when it comes to getting that tracking information out up front, providing up-to-date information on when they can expect that delivery, making this really feel like a white glove service, even though you don't really have to pay extra or spend a ton of time or money to make it feel like that. Of course, we definitely see, merchants are getting really creative around things like branded packaging, making it stand out when you get an order. It really feels like you've got a gift, even if you bought it for yourself. May not necessarily scale to really large volumes, but things like handwritten notes, really putting thought into what the actual customer sees when they open up that box. Even something as simple as branding your packing slip or providing some extra messaging around what's in the box, things along those lines. It's not really anything that requires extra time. Obviously, there may be some added cost there if you go out and get packaging that's branded with your logo as opposed to using free USPS boxes and things along those lines. But depending on your product and kind of your cost per order and things like that, it's definitely something to consider, because that's where you're going to get that viral uplift from your customers sharing this part of the process that they're really proud about getting an order from you and sending it to their friends, because obviously that referral there is going to be huge for driving your sales down the line. So just put thought into it. Try and keep it consistent to where it doesn't just feel like, oh, I bought from this company, but then everything after purchase was just handled by a carrier. Really, we see merchants, regardless of size, being thoughtful and trying to make this a consistently branded process from the time the customer checks out to the time that order shows up on their door. Even little things like a follow-up email that says, hey, your order has been delivered. Thanks again for your business. Things like that can all be automated, and those little touches add up.
Awesome insights. Well, Cody, I want to be mindful and respectful of your time, so I'm going to ask you a final question here. I'm going to put you on the spot, and given you have expertise and you nerd out, per your words, on things related to shipping, leave us with your single best piece of advice for entrepreneurs when it comes to shipping.
Yeah, sure. So, we understand that each business is different, businesses of all sizes that we work with. So there's no necessarily, magic bullet here that's just going to solve all of your problems, but it really should go back to that first part of our discussion. Make sure your process is repeatable, scalable, and mistake proof, right? So we work with merchants who maybe have been growing their business, but then they found out that they're going to be going on Shark Tank or Good Morning America, or maybe they just know that it's going to be a really busy holiday season, right? Look at your process, evaluate things that you're doing one at a time or over and over or manually, and eliminate those, right? Because largely your process should work the same whether you're getting 1 order a day, 10 orders a day, 10,000 orders a day. So regardless of where your business is at now, think about what would happen or what your warehouse would look like if you did get that pop and things went viral and you got 10,000 orders that day. Because if you have things squared away, you have the right processes in place, you have a tool that can automate this process, it really should work the same way, other than the fact that you may need more boxes that day. But I would say set your business up to where a spike in business should be welcomed and not a source of panic by automating and eliminating those things that are really reliant on that tribal knowledge, doing things one at a time.
Awesome. Well, Cody, let me conclude with this. Of course, with our partnership and integration, we're offering InkSoft users their first month at no cost. So there's really no risk in trying out ShipStation. At the same time, I want to call out to any of our listeners, we have some comprehensive video overviews that demonstrate the integration, really expose the value. So certainly, for those of you that do have questions, reach out to the InkSoft Success Squad. We can get you hooked up with a tour of how this integration works and bring some extra insights into the value that InkSoft users are getting by automating their shipping. Well, Cody, thanks so much for sharing all these knowledge bombs. I know InkSoft customers are going to love hearing about this and taking some action on improving things related to shipping. So again, thanks for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Excited to be working with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cody. Take care now.
All right, bye-bye.